Part of AFMC, you'll be meeting over in the Jasmine room, and then AFLCMC, just stay in that room afterwards. And then if you are part of a FICA, you'll be staying in this room. Today we'll be coming to an end here in this room, so make sure that you're back here by 2:15.
Can't believe this week has flown by. What was your favorite part, Michael?
You know, I'm going to have to say that Con IT was quite interesting, sir. You know, I made a note of it, and I'm going to be providing my feedback after the conference.
What a great reminder. We are asking for your feedback about this summit. So please, take some notes. Your feedback is important to shape the future summits.
Just to let you guys know, for those of you who are checking out, when you get your receipt, you should not have any taxes on it. So you should have done the tax exempt form, but if you have any questions about that, you can see anybody in the blue shirts. Also, who is staying here? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, so if you're staying here at the Wyndham, when you get your receipt, there should be a $220 conference charge. For those of you not staying here, you should have already paid that registration fee when you checked in. However, I do have a note. With the following individuals, please just confirm that they paid with one of the people at the registration desk. Rolf Cooper, Kevin Schaefer, John Weeks, and Wesley Badeau. I appreciate it. Ed, what'd you do last night?
Want to introduce the first speaker?
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome to the stage Major General Cameron Holt.
And Emily, that's not glory to all.
It's easy to find limits. Eventually, you hit a wall or a ceiling. In the Air Force, we tell our own to aim high. Since the beginning, we've refused to accept limits. We don't hit walls. It wasn't that long ago they said man couldn't fly. In 1947, we broke the sound barrier. The Tuskegee Airmen broke the color barrier. America's women broke the gender barrier. Some walls are inside your head. Some walls are in the minds of others. Intolerance, ignorance, oppression. The Berlin blockade was a wall you could touch. We broke through. More than 2 million tons of cargo, food, clothing, medical supplies were airlifted across the Soviet line. The Arctic saw a C-47 Skytrain become the first plane to ever land at the North Pole in 1952. In 1978, GPS was born with the launch of Navstar, and guided defense systems became reality. The first enlisted RPA pilot, the first American female fighter pilot, soon, the first female special tactics airman. The Enola Gay ushered in the nuclear era. We made planes all but invisible. We were the first to parachute from outer space. We have to aim higher, because there are no boundaries in this Air Force. We see the impossible. We see things no one else sees. But we don't see walls. Where others see barriers, we see bridges to the future. Hard to cross, dangerous, with no guarantee. But what's on the other side is worth it. It's not greatness or glory, it's selflessness. We don't break barriers for ourselves, because to break through is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of 1,000 journeys for those right behind you. Inside every one of us is something so small and enormous, it has the potential to change the world. It's our purpose. Small because it's personal, enormous because of its power. It's been said that the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Everything was impossible until someone did it. You have sworn an oath to follow orders. Your orders are to look to the horizon. Look to the sky. Space. Dare to see beyond everything we know. The future is waiting for you to create it. Walls are built of fear and doubt. The ones who break through are the ones who never saw a wall at all. Aim higher.
So how's your fun meter, Air Force contracting? I was talking to a couple of really fine officers this morning, ones with very good judgment, ones I trust very much. And I asked them, how's it going? What do you think? He goes, and they said, yeah, I'm going there. And they said, yeah, this is great, General Holt. This is just awesome. Palmer Lucky, oh my gosh, how young is he? And Dr. Roper's so young. They were my favorite speakers. I'm going to try hard not to take that personally, but I agree with it. No, it's all good. It's good to stay humble. I know my limitations, it's okay. All right, so you've heard a lot about the why. We've covered a lot about the why. Today, we start talking about the what we need to do. Because, I love the idea that we're coming back together as an Air Force contracting family. We need to. It's long overdue. I can see it in the hallways. I can see it in the conversation and the hugs and the interaction and the old friends and the new friends. It is exactly what I hoped for. And I knew that if no matter what else I did, whether it made sense to you or not, that would be a win all by itself. But I will tell you, there's more than that. This is not just a stunt, and it's not just a PR show, okay? Or it is those things. But it's far more than that. It's a call to action, ladies and gentlemen. It's a call to action. And the leadership of Air Force contracting got together, and we slapped the table in unity that we are headed in a new direction. And I'm going to share with you what that direction is. You've heard bits and pieces of it. You've seen it in the hallways. I mean, the stink of it is everywhere, right? But I'm going to take you through it in a little bit more methodical and in ordered way, so it kind of puts it all together for you, hopefully. All right, so first off, I'm going to tell you just what my opinion of where we are in Air Force contracting right now. Obviously the numbers are the numbers. That's our total force, just so you understand kind of how we're split up. And so you'll notice right away we're like 70% civilian, and I love that. I have my whole career in contracting. I've been very comfortable serving alongside our civilians, and I've always known that our civilians, they don't care if you wear a pretty uniform. They just don't. The minute you touch that guidon of command, all the folks that dress like I do see you as their commander in the instant you touch that guidon. For our civilians, that's the moment they start to decide whether you're their commander or not. And generally speaking, what happens in their mind after that, in my experience, when they decide whether you're their commander or not, is, are you competent and do you care? And you can't fake either one. And so I've always been comfortable with how we do this. And our enlisted force, my gosh, you want to talk about the best enlisted force, not just in the Air Force, but in DoD. Unbelievable. I remember a couple of years ago I was talking to Chief Tuck about this, and he and I were just sitting together after work, and talking about this, and we were just congratulating ourselves that we just have the best enlisted folks. And then we looked at each other almost at the same time. We looked at, we said, we got the highest standards. We need to raise them. And that's just who we are. And that's what we're doing. You see us pushing enlisted folks into new roles and more responsibility and more expectations. And they are equal to it, and I just love it. We are our civilians, our force is the highest educated force, but the lowest paid. And I'm going to show you how we're getting after that, like 8 o'clock day one, Monday morning, and we're all over it. Some of you saw that in the breakout sessions, but I'll go over it here in context. I believe there's, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest there's growing frustrations with the contracting processes and oversight. Some of that is mythology, frankly, and where it is mythology, I will say it is, and I will explain why it's mythology. Some of it is really not mythology, and that's the part that we really got to get after, and I don't care about the mythology. I'll let the haters hate. It's okay. That's not what I'm about. But we do have to get after a lot of this. I believe that we have just exited a period of very highly prescriptive acquisition guidance. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I believe that acquisition guidance was wrong. Better buying power, a lot of that was absolutely good principles for us all to understand. But it is time to rip the training wheels off. It's time to rip the training wheels off. Not everybody is ready for me to rip the training wheels off, but I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it because we have to. But I believe that this overly prescriptive acquisition guidance, the unintended consequence of it, is that it's created exasperation in our workforce, a lack of ownership and fear of recrimination. And that is an unintended consequence we've got to get rid of. Even in DC, it's like the centerpiece of recrimination. And I'm telling you, I am dispensing with that culture of recrimination entirely. And I'm asking all of my directors to do the same thing. And to be very careful about when you hear something from a young contracting officer that you think they should have known and didn't, do not show your frustration with that at all. Because we've got to be more mature about that, and we've got to help these folks. Because I'm giving them the keys, and I want them to start driving those vehicles. And we need to support them in that. You heard Dr. Roper. I think you can agree with me that there is alignment between us, that there is that backstop, and even beyond him, my discussions with Secretary Wilson and with Undersecretary Donovan. Secretary Wilson actually said in reference to, because I told him, I said, there's going to be rainy days. There's going to be a Washington Post article out there. We're going to blow it in some cases. Oh, and when I said that, I said, I will take the blame when that happens, and we just need to let our folks continue. But the Secretary said, I'm the one that has to testify to Congress, and I'm telling you, go. I'll worry about the testimony of Congress. So we could not have better leaders to support you. Our future state, we looked at this and we said, you know what, we are confusing ourselves. After all of the reorgs that we've done and all of that, we're confusing ourselves. We need to achieve alignment and clarity and simplicity and get back to the basics of who we are as airmen. And so as a result of that, a couple of things that we've done in the strategic context of Air Force contracting. We've retired the Air Force contracting guiding principles. Instead, we want to just go rely on our Air Force core values and apply that to everything that we do in contracting. And I think that's sufficient. And in our new Air Force contracting mission, we deliberated, believe it or not, the board of directors deliberated on this for a while. And what we decided was, you know what? Why do we need to differentiate ourselves from the Air Force? Why do we need to be separate or distinct from what the Air Force mission is? And the answer we came up with is we do not. We are airmen. We fly, fight, and win. And in airspace and cyberspace, if you look out across this audience, there's folks operating in all those domains. But we just apply our business expertise to that problem, and that's how we fly, fight, win. You heard lots of people talk about, starting with Hap-Arnold. We may not have pilots in the next few decades. What a culture shock that will be for the Air Force. But I can tell you our Air Force is nimble enough. If we have to go there to fly, fight, and win in airspace and cyberspace, it's exactly what we'll do. So it takes all airmen at the table with all expertise to make fly, fight, win happen. And I'm telling you, you have a special place in my heart for ones that need to step up and lead and help the other folks along the way to get to fly, fight, win. The bottom line of this is we want to think like a business where the bottom line is lethality and readiness. That's what we need to put on that bottom line. And man, I hope our retained earnings account goes through the roof. And I know it will. It already has in some cases. Okay, so this slide basically summarizes the Air Force leadership team. So another thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to stabilize who are the leaders of Air Force contracting. With all the reorgs that have gone on, that I've told you before, that Greg got up. But now it's no longer a Central PK, it's an OL PK, and it's no longer a MAGCOM director of contracting, it's an FICA OL director. And then there's roles of deputy directors of contracting that are very important, right? But as I was mentoring people, because I mentor an awful lot of people, and I have them fill out a similar slide. And what I was noticing on every single person's career plan, they had no idea what to put out there at the end of their career as a goal for themselves to achieve. And it would just, some of them had a box with a question mark. And these are folks that have been in the Air Force and in Air Force contracting for a while. And what we decided together was, you know what, we need to stabilize this so that everybody understands who are the leaders of Air Force contracting. So if you start with that first box, if you imagine this chart building, you start with that first blue box there. That's the executive steering group. Now these folks are basically overseers of the rest of the board of directors. In fact, the rest of the board of directors work for the folks that are on that executive steering group. And so these are the close advisors to me as we progress through the decision-making processes and deliberations. You've heard from our senior leaders here, we don't agree on everything. We're going to have a board of directors meeting tomorrow, and I guarantee you there's going to be sparks flying. I've put some agenda items on there that guarantee we're going to have some sparks flying. But I've actually invited some of the rest of you to observe the board of directors, warts and all, because I want transparency. I want transparency in our decision making. I want you all to know that you have a representative that represents you, that I fully expect owns that responsibility to represent you at that board of directors. So that executive steering group, I engage them pretty frequently. And then the board of directors meets twice a year. And that is the decision-making body for the Air Force. Now, I'm unapologetic about the idea that I am the 51% shareholder. Okay? But in the end, you have to have that eventually, right? But I will tell you, each of these directors have a huge stake in this. And if you don't think that these folks can change my mind, you got another thing coming. They can. I have deep respect for these people and the knowledge that they bring to the table. And frankly, when I became AQC, which is a humbling experience, following these folks is hard to do. I did not want Air Force contracting to be solely dependent upon my decision making alone. If I'm really, really good, I think I'll be right maybe 50% of the time. And that is not good enough for us in Air Force contracting. But 100% isn't reasonable either, because we're going to make mistakes and we'll own up to it when we do. But 85% I think is about the right range. And I think with this group of leaders, we're going to get there. We're going to get 85% right, and the rest of it we'll either apologize for if we can't fix it, or we'll go back and fix it. I've told folks, if I sign a policy memo, even after we've deliberated, and it's just not the right thing to do, or it's working out the wrong way, I'll sign another one that fixes it. I don't have an insecurity about that. We've got to get it right, and it's not about me. And then you look at that green outer boundary there where it pulls in the career field manager and our great team down at San Antonio. But conspicuously, you don't see anybody else in that green bucket. Well, that's intentional. Because the same leaders that are driving the decision-making for Air Force contracting are also driving the decision-making for taking care of every man, woman, and child in Air Force contracting. The bottom line of that slide is we're making everybody in that box senior contracting officials. And that is it. There's nothing else to remember. There's no gobbledygook to remember. SCCO, Director of Contracting, but no authority level. SCOs, some of which are a single squadron. Afotech was a SCO. They had 4 people. I don't know, what do you do? Rotate that amongst the 4 people, you know? And what action do you have that requires SCO authority? When AFCWWTS is a SCO, and then 4 people at Afotech are a SCO, it's always lost lock with me as I've grown up in Air Force contracting. I'm bringing all that family back under the representation of all of these folks. We're getting rid of all those stragglers, and I want everybody represented at these tables. I don't want people out on their own. And as we form a team across this group here, you're going to find out some really cool things, and I'll get into as I get into the slides here. But senior contracting official, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you put on that right side of the chart. I want to be a SCO. And I don't care if it's a weapon system portfolio, operational portfolio, R&D portfolio, I want to be a SCO. I want a seat at that table. I want a name card on that table. And that's what you strive for. Okay, so as we get into the mission-focused business leadership flight plan, these are just some big ideas, right? Because I know it can get detailed when we get into the actual plan, but these are major themes. If you want to know where are we now and where will this take us if we're successful at getting this plan done, these are the major themes. We're shifting from linear thinking, one at a time in eaches, to systemic thinking. We're airmen. We're the ones who originally thought of that on the battlefield together. We need to apply that to our peacetime Air Force and think systemically, big ideas, looking at the whole, not just the parts. From bureaucratic to entrepreneurial behaviors, okay? Where each of these directors of contracting are presidents of their own company, as Tom Robinson pointed out. They're presidents of their own company. We don't have 06 and SES staff officers. We have 06 and SES decision makers. And that's what we need. And senior decision makers. And wait till you find out what I'm going to do to empower them. Holy smokes, you're going to want it. And then we're going from defense to offense. When I got to AQC, as Dr. Roper pointed out, I heard all of the criticisms of Air Force contracting and all the, well, not Air Force contracting, but contracting in general. Right? And I can't sit at my desk and move a paper from that side of the desk to that side of the desk for 3 years and just listen to that in a defensive tone. We're taking offense, folks. We're going after the mission of the United States Air Force with gusto. And we're going to flood the network with positivity. We're going to outpace every one of our other teammates, not to show them up, but to lead by example and let them know that we have a sense of urgency about us to get after China and Russia, and we're going to do it. From stovepipes to horizontal teams. FICA is a great example of this where, when we formed FICA, it was still really hard for people to get outside of those stovepipes in the MAGCOMs and in the enterprise sourcing. In fact, when I first got to FICA and I was getting immersion briefs, they would brief me and start by saying, I'm a former ESG person, so that I would understand their context towards their job. Or I'm a former MAGCOM person, right? And FICA did a beautiful job of figuring out, no, we're one FICA with 4 missionaries. Right? And I'd see under Allie's leadership, that is like taken off. And the cooperation is just like unbelievable. And they're actually moving workloads around the Air Force, like in seconds. One end of fiscal year, I slept like a baby while somebody decided to patch Deans in San Antonio, and the Air Force was going to lose $15 million worth of AETC work. And I woke up in the morning to find out they had self-organized and figured it out, pushed it to the 766 SCONs in Hawaii and awarded all $15 million under PACAF's SCO authority, or at the time, or whatever the authority was. I couldn't figure it out. That was the other reason, secretly, I'll tell you, I'm from Georgia, and I read it and I can't figure it out, and so if I can't figure it out, it's gotta go. Because I gotta be able to explain it. And I couldn't. Okay, so the horizontal teaming, though, is really critical, and as we do this board of directors at the Air Force level, I fully expect we're going to form a team, and those folks are going to develop an appreciation for what each other are doing and be able to communicate that to the workforce. Where somebody working in systems or leading systems can explain to their workforce the importance of the operational mission, and the folks working in operational can explain the importance of the systems mission that we get out in front of China and Russia. And as we cooperate together and pile up time and money in the hallways, and we ask the Air Force to reinvest it in lethality and readiness, we're not going to care who gets the credit, and we're not going to care what it gets spent on, as long as it's the next best thing that beats China and Russia and disrupts the course we're on. So from compliance focus to mission focus. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that compliance doesn't matter. I heard feedback that some of my pricers think that I don't love them. I'm telling you, I love my pricers. We've got to actually educate the rest of our workforce to be more ninjas in pricing and convince some of our contracting officers that it's not, you can't dodge that job, right? That's your job too, right? And all of the things that we've learned about that are valuable. I care about the quality of the contracting we do. However, we have to shift our focus on why we do what we do. It's about mission. It's about the mission. And it's about beating China and Russia. And when you put that in context, what I'm hoping is you'll find out a lot of people will put into context some of the sacred cows they believed in for a long time and said, you know what, I love that, but it's got to go, because we can't get there from here if we don't kill the sacred cows. From business advisors to business leaders, we've talked a lot about that, so I won't belabor it. Okay, for those of you who know me, when we started this journey, we're just, in fact, we're publishing the flight plan right now, but there were some things that we just could not wait on. We had to get a rolling start. And so we had to start piling up early wins in the hallways. And we got after it. And as a group, we got after it. And I'm just going to share with you some of the results we already have in the can. And there's several more that are actually going on right now, even before the team's fully gelled. Obviously, I just shared, we stood up the Air Force Contracting Board of Directors and Executive Steering Group. We're expanding strategic partnerships. I'm a big fan of this. And I'll give props to Tom Robinson. One of the most effective ones we've got is LCMC's CITI, Contract Innovation Group. Yeah. FICA has a very strong partnership with the Naval Postgraduate School, as you saw on full display today, and that's paid huge dividends. But where we're going is we're going to start establishing more strategic partnerships with executive education programs. And with DAU, Jim Woolsey actually came to me and asked if he could partner with me. The answer is yes. And BENS as well, Business Executives for National Security. They came to me as well. And General Nordy Schwartz, our former Chief of Staff, he knows everything that I'm briefing to you on mission-focused business leadership. That group, just so you understand who they are, it's a group of executives across America. Not even just defense firms, but a group of executives that just have a heart for America and they want to support defense. They cannot get paid by DoD, it's in their bylaws. They cannot accept a single dollar. In fact, they've got to pay dues to be a member of BENS. But they usually work on huge national security issues for the Chief of Staff or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. This is a high cachet type of group with a lot of capability. And General Schwartz, after seeing what we've got, a former Navy SEAL that saw what we were doing, and a really creative mind, and a guy named Mike Hoffmeyer, who are members of BENS, they took that back to General Schwartz, and he said, I'm in. This is a game changer for national security. And so we've got a team right now scoping our relationship and what they're going to support in these lines of effort. Also, we had to get busy with talking about, we're serious about business leadership. We're not going to just talk about it, we're going to do it. We removed 2 layers of contracting oversight immediately, that director of contracting nebulous thing with no authority level name, with the double asterisk at the bottom of the chart, and the SCCO layer. And we simplified that and flattened it to senior contracting officials. I raised the authority level of all senior contracting officials to $1 billion, not just competitive, but also non-competitive. That will be a game changer all by itself, and I'll tell you a little secret about that in a second. And then we, this is a good story. So I executed a class deviation on the DFARS. So I went to OSD, and I asked them, and I know I'm broadcasting worldwide, it's okay. If you want to send me home to Kelly, she'll be happy about that. But I asked them, I said, look, I've raised my authority level because I'm listening to the department, and I think that's the right thing to do. And I want you to raise your peer review threshold coincident to that, so I don't have to bring teams to the Pentagon at all. You know, I'm willing to let them bypass me and go straight to OSD because I trust them, but it's just weird, and we don't need to do that. If we need a peer review, the SCO will decide they need a peer review, and they'll do it. I don't have to worry about that. The answer I got was no. So, but because I'm an engineer in contracting, I came back to the office and I said to Jerry Pelican, I said, hey, is that one of the areas of the DFARS that I can't do a class deviation on? And she looked it up and said, no. And then Rich Clifford's folks, our great legal support, they checked it too and said, you have the legal authority, my friend. And so I did it. So I raised the Air Force's peer review threshold level to $1 billion. Dr. Roper told me to make him nervous. If you're listening, sir, there's one for you. I'm waiting for the cards and letters. In addition to, I told you about the $1 billion, but I'll tell you guys a little secret if you'll keep it to yourselves. I've only taken 1 clearance so far as SAF AQC since June. Every one of them except one, I've delegated down to our senior contracting officials. If you don't think that I trust them, you got another thing coming. Okay? They're fully capable of doing that. I don't need to do that. The one that I did take a clearance on was not because I didn't trust the folks to do that themselves, but because it was going to go up to Miss Lord's level at DOD. I felt like I needed to have a very complete understanding of it if I needed to be a blast shield or to advocate for them at the next level. And so that's really why I did it. But it's going great. And then I ended the war on Section H. Can I get a little applause on that? I know not everybody loves that, but let's be real, folks. What happened to those clauses? They went right back into the PWS, they went into Section J. I wasn't born yesterday, right? And again, you know, Jerry and our policy folks are awesome people. They went back and looked at the reality of it and it was really the Air Force restricting itself. And so I said, no, that Section H is invaluable canvas for the contracting officer to paint the business deal on. And I want that canvas back. And so it's safe to bring everything out of the PWS and out of Section J and put it in special contract requirements where it belongs. And all you have to do is make a decision. Is that the right thing to do or not? And stand behind your decision. That's all I'm asking. Okay, no process before the process. I know that's not popular with some people, but we have to do it. We have to do it. And so I published that, and we've got to eliminate those multiple reviews. We've got to restore the decision-making credibility of the contracting officer. And so it was getting to the point where, as you heard Mr. Robinson say, it was like 7 times before it got to him. And you know, when I got to AQC, I was like, what's my job? Do I just like high five everybody and then, you know, sign it and we take a picture? That's what I do. And the point of that is, look, I want those contracting officers to understand your opinion, your decision making, your judgment matters. And there's a high likelihood that what you recommend will go to the decision maker. And if it comes to me, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you there's a very high likelihood that I will trust you and sign it on behalf of the United States Air Force, your recommendation. Okay, training wheel's coming off. So, you know, before you do the ticker tape parade for me, right, understand there's responsibility that comes with this, right? But we have to do this. Okay, more early wins. In the tools, non-rules area, AFCWWTS, AFMC deployed that sole source contract streamlining toolkit. It's an awesome tool. I commend it to all of the Air Force. But you know, what I noted was before we kind of teamed up, a lot of the Air Force didn't even know that it existed. But it's open to everybody. Air Force Pitch Day, as we've talked a lot about, that sent a very clear message to industry, to the media, to the venture capital firms, that not just the Air Force is back, but Air Force contracting is back as innovators and leaders in this space. And Dr. Rover, he was giddy after this whole thing. And he just, as he was walking out of the hotel at Times Square, he said, Cameron, Air Force contracting knocked it out of the park. And his ask was pretty high, as you can probably understand. Okay, and then there were some immediate actions we had to take to strengthen and shore up our Air Force contracting family. I just felt like I could not wait on those. And so we started like day one, 8 o'clock Monday morning, and we went after these civilian position upgrades. We've got to be competitive for the talent that we have. And we've got 600 plus upgraded and in the can, and we've got 800 plus more in progress. And LOE1 team is going to be looking at what done looks like, and then we're going to go through that process. We have the first enlisted education with industry placement. That's a big statement as well. I talked about raising. Yeah, that's all Chief Congress doing. So and the chiefs, I just love them. Great leaders. And they listen to us, sort of, and then they go get stuff done, right? But I love that. I love that. I still, to this day, from second lieutenant to two-star general, I can't bring myself to call our chiefs by their first name. As you know, I like to call people by their first name. I still can't do it for a chief. I have a reverence for a chief master sergeant. We have the first venture capital firm EWE slot already. And Rick Bennett and his folks, I mean, you want to talk about great. And by the way, Palmer Lucky told me last night he wants an Air Force contracting EWE slot at his company. We'll see if we can oblige him with that. We initiated the Air Force contracting total force integration plan. And I'm excited about this, guys. We're raising the rent on our reservists too. They are part of us, and it used to be that we would just, push them out to whoever would take them, and they would do closeouts in the corner. Ladies and gentlemen, that's about to change. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have offices competing for that talent, and they're going to have to justify us putting, and they're going to have to have a plan for us to put those reservists in there. And then for our reservists, your expectation level is going way up too. You're not there to just punch a time card. You're there to go support the mission of the United States Air Force along with us, right? When a fighter aircraft pulls up behind a tanker, that fighter pilot does not care or know whether it's a reserve crew in that tanker or whether it's an active duty crew. It's time that Air Force contracting joined that. We're going to identify AJ Leone as leading this effort right over there. And we're going to identify for the active duty development team certain jobs that we will consider every DT to put a reservist into. And that includes command of an active duty contracting squadron and superintendent of an active duty contracting squadron. We will not fill those every time. The reservists have to bring it. They have to earn the right for us to stand behind them and put them in those leadership roles. And it's not just those, it's data analytics on the business intel competency cell. It's a war planner for OCS and HADR operations and DISCA operations. Things that we need deep experience to bring to the Air Force. Our reservists are going to help us out with that. And it's time we do this. We've already started. The reservists are here today, and AJ kind of let them in on the plan here. We've expanded enlisted vectors. And Chief Conger, this is a credit to you as well. We got a lot of feedback from the enlisted. Don't vector a lot of us. You only got 4 leadership jobs. We're not going to all be vectored for that. You're wasting your time with vectoring all these people. Chief and I talked about it and said, no, we're still going to vector all those people, but we're going to expand the roles that we vector them to. And that's huge. We're going to be using that talent in a much more deliberate fashion. And that's great. We're removing time restrictions on DAU training for enlisted force, and I'll tell you a little story about that. Shortly after I became a QC, I go down and I brief all the wing commanders courses, and Allie helps me out with briefing the group commanders and SMLs. In fact, we're kind of interchangeable. Scott Kaiser briefs some. But I went down there to do that and let them in on where we're headed with Air Force contracting. And as I get down there, I often like to go see the 42nd Cons because they're right there. You know, why not, right? So I went and I talked to the 42nd Cons, and I gave this town hall, and it was very early in my thinking about mission-focused business leadership, and I was like, I just let them know everything I was thinking. I was like, what do you guys think? You know, and one of the questions I got was from a young senior airman. And I don't know if he drew the short straw or not. But he stood up and he said, sir, I disagree with the policy that enlisted folks have to wait to get their DAU certifications and officers and civilians don't have to wait. Can you explain that policy to me? And so, you know, I told him the reason why that policy was in place, and it's actually a good reason. We don't want people to think that the DAU certification level is necessarily a capability, right? It's not. It's not a qualification for anything. It's just a piece of paper and it's courses, right? And I told him the reason for it. And then I said, but I disagree with it. So we're going to change it. And the reason I disagree with it is because if anybody in Air Force contracting wants to go faster in becoming an expert in my craft, I want to give them every opportunity to go as fast as they can to become an expert, no matter what that means. Education, experience, training. If you have a desire, go as fast as you want to go. But you know, this young man was like, okay, yeah, this heavy breather comes down and says he's going to do that, yeah, whatever. Right? I know what he's thinking. I was them, right? And then I fly back up to Washington the next morning, and I get with Chief, and I said, Chief, I hope we're on the same page for this. And he goes, I'm way ahead of you. And he rolls out with a memo, like in an hour. And we dual sign a memo, changing that policy, and we send it to that young man first. And then we send it to the whole 42nd Cons next. And then we send it out to the whole Air Force. Less than 24 hours, we changed that policy. Oh yeah, and I forgot. All right, so let's go through the flight plan. So there's 4 lines of effort. You've seen them in the hallways. Line of effort 1 is line of effort 1 for a reason. It's the most critical thing for the long haul that we've got to get right. And it's building mission-focused business leaders. This is where we look at the difference between what is it to build an Air Force contracting professional versus what is it to build a mission-focused business leader. What are the implications of that? And I think roughly speaking, you can kind of break that up into 2 pieces, mission focus and business leadership. And so what I've asked LOE1's team to do is go look at, you know, forget the training that we do today. Take a clean sheet of paper out. I'm not saying that the training that we do today is necessarily bad. I mean, it's probably the best in DoD. But to put that aside for a second, let's get back to basics and then say, what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we need to build into a mission-focused business leader right from the very first day that they show up, all the way to being a senior contracting official? And you heard Mr. Robinson talk about this. You know, after being an unlimited warrant holder in level 3 in contracting, it's like the wasteland of, you know, I guess we've learned everything we're supposed to learn. Really? That's the message we're sending? No, 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 no. And a lot of this is resource driven. You know that I'm embarrassed to tell you, I can't even send 100% of our officers and civilians through an initial skills training that we created. I can't. I don't have the money for it. They, you know, we've got the mission ready contracting officer course. And if they do go, they go like 8 or 9 months into it. You know, that is not the way to treat our people if we want them to know that their job is important. And so we have got to fix this, folks. And so we're going to build those knowledge, skills, and abilities all the way up. But roughly speaking, I want to give you some thoughts to just spark your imagination. If somebody earns an unlimited warrant and they are a ninja in contracting, right? And they know what they're doing with government contracting. Oh, by the way, that's job one, everybody. If you don't do that and invest yourself in getting there, you're gonna, at some point, you're gonna be useless to the Air Force. You've got to get, not everybody has to get an unlimited warrant, but everybody has to get to be an expert in contracting. Okay, so let me just be clear about that. But once you've earned that right, once you've passed that gauntlet of an Air Force contracting officer that's unlimited, I want to ask the Air Force to now start investing in you. And so on the corporate side, so I want to immediately send all those unlimited warrant holders to the Darden School of Business. I'm going to team up with the Navy. We're sending some folks to the next course. There is like a 2-week course on how to read financial statements and balance sheets and starting to understand what retained earnings is about and how cash flow works. And what is return on capital employed and what's the significance of that? How does Wall Street operate? And you start to understand that. You heard Dr. Roper talk about it, you heard me talk about the industrial base. We're playing to our own cottage industry, and it's a very small portion of America's overall industrial might. And no longer can we accept that. We need business leaders who understand both sides of that equation very well. And from that point, all the way up to being a senior contracting official, we're going to take those knowledge, skills, and abilities, and we're going to solve this problem. DAU is going to help us do this, right? And we're going to start being intentional about what continuous learning do you need and when do you need it, right? To become a mission-focused business leader. On the mission-focused side, we're going to change the CFETPs with an expectation that you learn your mission partner's mission as well as learning contracting wherever you're planted, right? That's going to be an expectation of growing up. And on the business leadership side, by the time you get to be a senior contracting official and you earn one of those seats at that table, now I want the Air Force to really invest in you. Now I want to send you to an executive education program that is roughly, I think, about 2 months long. That's about the right fit for us. And it's a crash course on preparing you to be a CFO or a CEO of a major corporation. That's what I want. And why? Well, because that's what I believe you're doing for the Air Force. That's the level of decision maker that you are. When you're taking a clearance or you're engaging with the leadership of a company on a tough negotiation, I don't want you talking about a determination of findings for contract type, right? I want you operating on their level, talking about their cash flow, talking about their 10K report to the Securities and Exchange Commission, talking about their executive compensation plan and that 50% of it is in cash flow, like it is for Boeing. And if you think I don't know what their 10K is, you got another thing coming, because I do. Not for the wrong reasons. We need to partner with them, but we need to find ways to align the incentives with the mission, right? I want our senior contracting officials to be able to operate at that level. That's going to take some investment. I told Dr. Roper all this, I'm going to cost you a lot of money. And he said, what's the bill? That's what he said. And I was like, hold on, we got to figure it out. Come on, give me some time. But the Air Force is standing behind this, okay? And A1 is helpful as well, thanks to Rick Bennett. And we need to leverage these strategic partnerships. We've already talked about that. Attracting and assessing and retaining key talent. When I have all that done, I believe that I can go to Harvard Business School, Wharton School of Business, Darden School, anywhere I go in this country, and I can lay on them a little pamphlet that says, hey, if you want to be a business leader and go sell toothpaste for Procter & Gamble for your life, you can do that. That's fine. You can do that. Or you can do this fly, fight, win thing. Huh? We got a lot to sell. And you're going to get this kind of decision-making authority at a very young age. And oh, by the way, when you come out of a career in the Air Force as a business leader, you're going to be fully capable as a CFO or a CEO of a major corporation. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a good product to sell to get the right talent. All right, line number 2, tools not rules. I love this. I can't take credit for the term. I got this from Gwen Shotwell at SpaceX. She's just awesome. What a leader she is. But tools not rules kind of fits what we need to do. We're going to bring down the level of mandatory guidance, and we're going to at the same time bring up the level of instructional guidance. So in the 90s was the last time we deregulated a lot. And I think we got it wrong in a way. Our measure of merit was just reduce the number of pages of the regulations, and then that was victory. We didn't really think about what we were doing in the content of that. And so I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that's what we did, right? And what we found out is that the corporate processes didn't exist. They were government processes. And so they had to figure out what are our commercial practices. I don't know. And young two-stripers that come in the door, they're like, what does step 2 look like? I have no idea, because we were using the mandatory procedures as an instruction on how to do stuff. But it's rigid, and the IG comes in, rips our knickers more than any other function out there, because we've got all these mandatory things, and if we don't do, we're wrong, right? Tom talked about circling the awardee in the red pen versus the blue pen, and you can get rid of for that. Really? That's what we're about? So what we're going to do is we started that already with Operation Clean Sweep, and man, that's tough business that is going on there. There's a lot of friction points. There's a lot of storming, norming, performing, all that, and there's a lot of folks that are like denied of oxygen, hoping, what is my job after this, right? And you got people questioning, what do I do? Is Holt saying he didn't value what I was doing before? And I think that's where the pricers are, and some of our policy folks, and even some of our branch chiefs and division chiefs with the no process before the process. Hey, I was the polish the rock guy. What do I do now? I need you. I need you all. I love what Dr. Roper said about, I don't believe in the frozen middle, and I don't either. I need every one of you, but I need you guys to imagine a different future where you get up out of your chair and you go sit by the contracting officer over their shoulder and you help them succeed. And you're comfortable with letting them go to your boss and represent what your organization is recommending for this business deal. Your role is changing, but it's no less important. And I just need to be clear about that. And I'll meet with these folks because I want to hear what they have to say, but I respect them deeply. I do. And so we have to also reimagine our online presence. It's an encyclopedia right now, and you have to go like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clicks to get to it. And then when you get to it, you find out it's not been updated, and it just crushes your will to live. And so we're going to revamp all that, right? And we're going to set up dashboards where it's much easier for you to see and get to what you need to get to. And I'm going to partner with DAU, I hope, to change how we deliver the instructional guidance too. Like, if I want to know how to set up an OTA, why don't I click on a video that's 3 minutes long and say, this is how you set up an OTA, and here's the ninjas in contracting that you can talk to that can help you further. Or here's the link to the templates and things like that can help you move down the road faster on that. How do you set up an Air Force pitch day? I've never done it before, but I know I can. Right? You can go to your commander and say, you want to access startups? Your Air Force business leaders know how to do it. Oh, you've done that before? Never done it before. Nope, but I know I can. And I can do it in 3 months. Bring it. That's what we need to do. And on this, guys, I'm really serious. And you're going to see a memo coming out that says Cortez is burning the ships. We are not going back, right? So we'll debate that in the board of directors. And then wait for, we're going to debate also in the board of directors. Right? We've already done no process before the process. We're going to debate another one that I'm ready to sign, which is no process within the process. So that's coming soon. Enhance instructional guidance, build dashboards, data-driven decision-making. It's amazing how hard that is. It's not hard to get the dashboards together, well it is. But even when you have the dashboards together, for our leaders, we're not used to leading that way. We're used to leading with our intuition and anecdotes and the most compelling speaker in the room. That's how we do business. That's how we've always done business. I need everybody to start learning a new way of leading and relying on data, and then getting the data right so that you rely on it and you can trust it. Line of effort 3, I gotta tell you, this is a big deal, to quote Frank Anderson. This is a big deal. Those of you who know Frank Anderson, I love that man. He's just awesome. Anyway, line of effort 3 is owning the high ground, optimizing the acquisition enterprise. This is the line of effort that the rest of the world will see. Line of effort 1, 2, and 4 is things we know as a contracting community we need to get after for the long haul to sustain us as mission-focused business leaders. Line of effort 3, though, will be what we contribute to the Air Force. Imagine yourself sitting in a church pew, right? Here comes the offering plate down the aisle. Our mission-focused business leaders, as we grab that offering plate, we're going to put time and money back into that plate and pass it on down the road. That's what we're going to contribute to the Air Force mission in getting after China and Russia. And line of effort 3 is going to be the engine and the scoreboard that shows the gains we're making in time and money. Both in the operational world, which we already have a good start on, and by the way, the Secretary published the business operations plan for the Air Force. Scott Callisti and his team were deep into the knickers on that with the Undersecretary, Mr. Lombardi. And we've already set the offensive counter-acquisition metrics and defensive counter-acquisition metrics. I'll get that into a minute for operational acquisition. And the cost savings, we're up to $1.6 billion, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're now the finance career field is coming in to help us to actually put long lines of accounting in that so we can actually inhale the savings and then redistribute that savings. Half of it, the whole Air Force is involved in what we're doing, folks. I just want you to know that, okay? When I'm not taking clearances, what am I doing? This is what I'm doing, okay? And A8 said, I think the split should be 50-50, where this 50% of that savings goes back to those commanders and PEOs that saved that money, right? And we're calling it free cash flow, by the way. And so that free cash flow, nobody can prioritize. No, I'm sorry, AFIMSC, but that's the idea. And AFIMSC, I think, would support this as well, once they understand what we're trying to do. But if you're a wing commander and you think that the next important thing is to fix the Youth Development Center on your base, but it didn't rank high enough in the rack and stack, for mission dependency, if you earn free cash flow back, you can go spend it on whatever you want within the law. And I think that's going to empower our commanders and our program executive officers. But at the same time, 50% of that goes back up to Mother Air Force, to SAP-MG, to the corporate structure to decide what we're going to spend that on. You may think this is kind of cutesy, but I really want to do it. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to take some of that O&M savings that FICA is leading the charge on with category management when we can finally reinvest it. And I'm going to go over to the Hill, and I'm going to ask them to recolor that money into 3010 aircraft procurement. I'm going to be right up front with them. It's a stunt. I'm going to tell them that honestly. This is a stunt. We can find it somewhere else, but I want you to support me on this. And then I want to buy an airplane for the chief and the secretary with the money that you saved. And I want to have an actual ceremony. Yeah, I know, right? We'll do it at Andrews Air Force Base. And I want the media there. I want everybody there. I want there to be a tangible sense of what does a mission-focused business leader do for fly, fight, and win in a tangible, direct way. And I want to put nose art on that aircraft that calls the spirit of FICA. That's what I want that. That's what I want to happen. I want every pilot that straps on that jet to know that that was given to them by the business leaders in the United States Air Force. So that I hope will happen. I'm going to get there. Efficiency is about looking across the horizontal portfolios of the Air Force and looking at ways to lower our dependency on repetition, and our manning is in the pre-award process right now. And we need to lower the dependency on transaction count. Remember, not linear thinking, but systemic thinking, not procurement acquisition lead time. The way to save time against procurement acquisition lead time is not to do that acquisition at all. That saves 100% of that haul time. And we can think bigger, right? We don't have to think, shave off 3 days here and 5 days there. I mean, it drains my will to live, folks, and it's on the smallest little postage stamp in the over total acquisition lead time. Like, what are we doing? This is not going to get after China and Russia. And I actually told the secretary that, I was kind of bold, but I told the secretary that it's the wrong measure, ma'am. That's not going to win anything. If FICA spends 30 months doing an enterprise vehicle for the Air Force to get it right, that's heresy for my Paul-time fans. You just blew the metric. What's wrong with you, FICA? But the minute that they award that contract, they just replaced 78 source selections, each of 16 months across the United States Air Force with a 30-day task order process. So what we're going to do is we're going to team up across this board of directors and all of you guys, and we're going to look horizontally. We're going to say, we're going to take 200 cars out of 200 parking lots, and we're going to put one car back in one parking lot. We're A&AS is like my biggest target. We're going to team up with Nancy Andrews. Is she still here? In the PEOCM portfolio, we're going to start there. We're going to team up and optimize that portfolio where we go and question, why do we need 200 A&AS contracts? What if the Air Force could do its own OASIS contract with pools that are targeted towards Air Force needs? And maybe the 771 ESS, I don't know how I'll throw them under the bus, but maybe if they did that, right, maybe that would support a lot of folks doing other things that they could get after for the Air Force. If we can lower that, what are we going to save? We're going to save time. And I want to reinvest that time. And I've told this to my leadership, don't take those people. Because we're not doing business analytics on the front end, and we're not doing post-award management on the back end and holding contractors accountable. Because we have no time. I want to show you what I'm reinvesting our time in, and I will be happy to tell you what a benefit that is for the mission of the Air Force. But I want to reinvest people's time. I want to send our contracting folks to trade shows on the missions that they support so that they know business intelligence, not just market research, right? But we have no time for that right now. We got to change that, and I've got a sense of urgency about me in getting to that. Effectiveness is what I talked about with piling up time and money. We're going to have we have the operational acquisition side almost wired. We got to get to the system side. The tiered enterprise acquisition metrics that we have that measures every wing's acquisition credit score and the acquisition unit health risk. We're going to reimagine that and looking at, can we do something similar for PEO portfolios? It wouldn't be the same measures at all. But do we ever assess a business deal after we've done the business deal? From the contractor's point of view, from our point of view. How would we even do that? But maybe that's a good thing to do for both industry and us to be candid about that. So instead of stopping every train car to make sure that we got a better deal than they got at every negotiation, maybe we're more mature about it. And instead of stopping the train on the train track, we understand the whole track at once. And we let that train run just as fast as our kids can make that train run. And as the train goes by, at leadership levels, we go, oh, that sucks. Ooh, that wasn't good. Oh, that, no, we don't like that. And then we think deeply about it and say, well, what do we need to do to change the whole train track? Right? Don't stop everything. We're going to make mistakes, right? And then go and fix those things, and then look at the train track again and say, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Oh, that still sucks. Okay. Right? But we've got to be able to get that bloodstream moving and learn continuously as we do that and have a much higher tolerance for risk-taking and for mistakes along the way as our kids get after this. And then we got to stop that culture of recrimination. Please don't ever ask, who made this decision? We've got to be paying attention to that. Okay, and then experimentation. I know this has taken me a long time, but I'll tell you, this is important stuff. Experimentation, you've heard about all the cool kids, right? The cool kids, so I call them. There's AFWWWTS, so there's RCO, there's Space RCO, there's Kesselwork, there's EIO Works, there's DIU, there's all kinds of cool kids organizations out there. CyberWorks at the Academy. I love all the cool kids organizations. I do. I really do, and I think they're important to our future. I do. However, here's the thing. When we set aside a group of people, we give all the authority, all the money, all of the awards, all of the recognition, all that, I'll take a random set of you and make a cool kids organization, and we will perform just fine. All right? I promise you that's the way it is. But when we do that, what we're convincing the main workforce is that they're the bureaucracy, they're the slow kids, right? They're the problem, and all the cool kids are the solution. But we are not going to beat China and Russia, ladies and gentlemen, with the cool kids. We're not going to do it. We are going to beat China and Russia with the main workforce, with every one of you 8,000 that are either in this room or on the line here. And so I've asked the business leaders that sit in these cool kids teams, I've asked them to be humble about the opportunity that they've been given to be the vanguard of experimentation. And what I'm asking them to do is, when you achieve what you achieve, things that work out well, that drop, the timeline by 98% with no quality loss, when that happens, you have another step. You have another responsibility as you work on that team together. And that is to document that success and to push it back up to Tools Not Rules team and to the Building Mission-Focused Business Leaders team for the training and the instructional guidance, so that we get that learning to the main workforce. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, I've sat in just about every seat you can sit in Air Force contracting. And if we make that little old lady that sits in the back row in that cubicle in that contracting squadron that's been with us for 32 years, if we make her the cool kid, then we will beat China and Russia, and no one can stop us. Okay, line of effort 4. Expeditionary contracting as a joint force capability. I tell you, I cannot be more proud of Ali Trevino and the FICA team. They have moved out on this so deliberately, it's stunning to watch. And I'm like, man, why didn't I leave that earlier? Holy smokes. But you've got those folks, you heard her brief this, readiness, development, integration, proficiency. We know we're the leaders in contingency contracting. That's not an arrogant statement. I think most everybody in DoD would recognize that. We briefed Scott Kaiser briefed the Secretary Wilson on that. And Secretary Wilson she didn't know, for one thing. And then she was like, you guys got an action, come back to me and tell me, what are our contracting officers doing for the rest of the DoD? Because I want to talk to my counterparts in the Navy and the Army about ponying up resources as well to join our little band of warriors here. Scott Callisti and the team have earned such credibility in the building. It's just unbelievable with OCS. And OSD is actually talking about turning the keys of policy over to the Air Force. And then we... And then we, being mature enough to understand that it's joint, it's not Air Force, have invited the Army to join us in a partnership there, and we would do it together. So stunning progress made there, and FICA is driving it home to the warfighter that contracting is a warfighting function. And that needs to be planned up front along with the kinetic effects as part of an overall campaign plan in the operational design phase. And I'll give a shout out to Colonel Yuchiari, because Colonel Yuichiro and his team have become so credible in their warfighting in PACOM. They are leading the joint contracting fight in all of PACOM, and they are fully immersed and embedded in all the joint war planning events, all of them. And Alan Trevino is 100% ready, if needed, and God forbid that this happen, but if needed, to go stand up a joint task force for contracting in the PACOM theater, and Air Force contracting would lead the charge for the entire joint force. And I've told Dr. Roper, I said, if that day comes, your daily calendar will change dramatically, sir. And the weapon systems you thought you were running, that'll be somebody else's job. You're going to be running right now. So we actually have a contingency plan in AQC to tool up AQ and AQC on how to switch to a wartime footing for SAF AQ rapidly, should that become necessary, to support Allie and her forces in the theater. We're ready to do that. So Dr. Roper actually, this is my last chart, Dr. Roper actually asked me, he said, you know, when I thought about and hear about all the criticisms of contracting, and then I see the reality, Cameron, of what you guys are doing and what your folks are all about, you know, he's like, I tell you, I want you to put together a contracting myths chart for me. And so this is the chart that came out of that. And I'll also tell you a little story about a woodshed moment that I got taken to the Vice Chief of Staff's office early in my tenure. It was about a month in, I guess. And we got a call saying, the Vice Chief needs you in his office, like now. Okay. I was like, Kelly, I'm coming home. I don't know why, but I'm coming home. And so I go to the Vice Chief's office, and I'm even more crestfallen to find my boss, Dr. Roper, sitting there already, right? And then there's a seat for me, right? And I sat in that seat, and I have no idea what the topic was when I was sitting in that seat, but I did come prepared. And so the Vice Chief, he said, you know, Cameron, we were out there with the Chief, and we're going to all these bases talking about the Squadron Innovation Fund. And, you know, at several bases, the Chief had asked these commanders, well, what have you done with my Squadron Innovation Funds that I gave you for revitalizing squadrons? That's a big priority of mine. What have you done? I want to know. And the squadrons were saying, you know, we put together what we thought would be helpful for our squadrons, and then we went to contracting and they said no. And then we tried again, and contracting said no. And so we gave up, Chief. We're not doing anything with your Squadron Innovation Funds. And that's what they heard at several bases. Now, on that, I'll get to this in a moment. Let me finish the story with the Vice Chief. Of course, I don't know what he's talking about, right? But I do know you guys. I do know you. And I don't know you just theoretically. I've been around the world and I've seen your glassy eyeballs. I know you. And I know that that's not the case, right? And so the Vice Chief asked me this question. He said, Cameron, what do we do to get our contracting officers to be more innovative? That's what he asked me. And yes, I did. I think I was still a one-star at the time, talking to a four-star. And I said, Vice Chief, I'm going to tell you right here and now, you don't have another more innovative group of folks in our Air Force than Air Force contracting. But we have handed them a bag of goo. That's what we've done. And I said, can I tell you a little story about what we've handed to them? And he's going, oh gosh, what's he going to do? And then I said, right now, I think it was July, I said, right now, in an Air Force contracting squadron at a wing, there's a single mom that's going to be staying late tonight. And she's going to be working every single night and on the weekends until 30 September, working on that wing's mission to preserve every ability to spend the money to the benefit of that wing's mission. And while she's doing that, she's missing her kid's soccer game, her kid's football game, and there is nobody else in the wing there with her. And while she's sitting there, she hears the messages from senior leaders of the Air Force. She's listening to them right now. Do you mind if I tell you what those messages are? And he goes, oh God, I already regret it. And Dr. Roper's sitting across from me like, I'm loving to hear this. And I opened my book and I read some quotes. And I said, one senior leader held a meeting in the Pentagon, senior leader Air Force, held a meeting in the Pentagon. There were roughly 65 people in the meeting. And the leader, they were talking about contracting and cracking on contracting. And the leader in that room said, you can't tell me that learning contracting is harder than learning to fly an airplane. And I said, you know what, Vice Chief? When that was said, there was thunderous laughter in the room at how preposterous that statement is, right? And I said, I guarantee you learning contracting is harder than learning to fly a plane. I've learned to fly a plane, and I've learned contracting. It takes us 8 years to build an unlimited contracting officer. And I said, we have over 140,000 pages of the Code of Federal Regulations. We've got over 4,500 pages of regulations between the FAR and the DFARs, and countless thousands of pages in our mandatory procedures, even below Air Force level. And we changed that, about 2,000 pages a year, we changed that. That is the bag of goo we've handed them to get the dollars to the mission, and they do it every day. I guarantee you, they are not slow students. And then I said, can I give you another quote? And he was like, oh my gosh, please get out of here. It's like, uncle. I said, another senior leader in the Air Force, and I said, the only reason I know this is because it was a big conference and it was covered in the press. And it wasn't specifically about contracting, it was about all of acquisition. But this senior leader said, don't ask the pigs to slaughter themselves. That's what he said. And so, and I said, Vice Chief, that's a lazy leadership statement. Because it's a model that says we want to innovate around the whole workforce and around the whole process so that we can get things done, and then disparage that process and those people. That's what we want to do. And it's lazy because it fails to recognize or learn what is in that process and help those people achieve, right? I don't have any interest in innovating around. I want to innovate through. But frankly, leading that way and innovating through the main workforce, it's hard. I'm losing my voice, right? I'm talking to you and 8,000 people and I'm an introvert. I don't like it. But we have to do this. I want to innovate through you because that's how we're going to help the Air Force beat China and Russia. And then, to the Vice Chief's credit, because that guy, he's an outstanding leader. And he said, I'm Ann Cameron. What do I need to do? He said that. And I said, well, let me tell you about mission-focused business leadership. Yeah. And I told him about what I was thinking. And he goes, I'm in. So I tell you, I walked back to my office, and before I got back to my office, there was an email. And I hate email, by the way. If I don't get back to you real quick, I'm really sorry, but I'd rather you pick up the phone. But if I got back to my office and his speechwriter had sent me an email saying, tell me about mission-focused business leadership. The Vice Chief is going on 2 weeks worth of briefings. He wants it in his message everywhere. I was like, gosh, if I do that, I'm going to get out in front of my board of directors, and right after I told them, I want them to be part of this, right? But when the Vice Chief asks you to do something, man, you don't say no, right? So I quickly wrote up 3 pages on mission-focused business leadership, what I was kind of thinking down the road. And I sent it to a speechwriter, and I was kind of like that 3-striper airman. I was like, okay, whatever, the Vice Chief asked me, that's really good. And then a couple weeks later, I get an email from Dave Villarreal out at the 766 S-Cons in Hawaii, and he's like exclamation points all over the place. He goes, sir, you're not going to believe what just happened. The Vice Chief was out here talking about the Squadron Innovation Fund, and some some operational commander stood up and said, contracting said no. And he stopped him cold in his tracks. And he said, let me tell you something. So Air Force contracting is not the problem. They are our solution. That's what he told them. And he told them all about mission-focused business leadership and what Cameron Holt is going to be doing to lead these folks in this direction. And he said, man, the oxygen for it went, whoop! And so it's awesome. In fact, he said he wants to actually engage the chief, the secretary, start thinking about putting this kind of stuff in our posture statement for the United States Air Force. Since that time, as you know, I've pitched the 809 panel. The secretary's fully on board. You heard Dr. Roper; he's fully on board. I'm telling you, we have our leaders' support. And so this is the myths. And reality is, guys, some of these myths you believe. Some of you believe some of this stuff. And the first one especially, contracting can be fast, all right, but not both. That is bogus. We can do both, but it takes real experts to do it. Like I said before, you can have the surface knowledge of contracting and tell people no all day long. That anecdote that the vice chief gave me, I did follow up on that. And there's what the real story was. They did come up with their requirements, and they gave the requirements to XP at the wing. And XP was supposed to write the requirement for contracting. Okay? And they had a letter in their hand that was a cutoff letter from the squadron commander, contracting squadron commander, that said, if it's after this date, we will not accept a requirement. And so they said, contracting said no. And they got lazy and they didn't write the requirement. And as you know, I sent out a fireside chat after that, and I advise our contracting squadron commanders, please don't sign a memo that's a lie the very moment that you sign it. Because when you say you won't accept a requirement after those dates, and the wing commander walks in your office and says, I really need this, can you get it done? You're going to say, absolutely, I can get it done. I'm a contracting ninja, right? That's what you're going to say. And what I encourage folks is sign the memo that I signed when I was a contracting squadron commander. And that said something like this. The 14th Contracting Squadron will be working nights and weekends from June to the end of the fiscal year, the very last minute, on this wing's mission. We will be doing that anyway. I'm telling you, based upon my knowledge of the rules, that if you give me these kind of requirements after these dates, mission success for this wing will go down exponentially from there. But if you give me a requirement at 11:59, we will do our best to get it on contract any way we know how, within the rules, right? And that's the memo I signed, because I knew I could back those words up with the action, because that's what I'm going to do, right? But if somebody gives me something late, they're putting our wing's mission at risk. They're not putting me at risk, right? And so I encourage us to change our messaging and don't let people out of jail that quickly by waving a little letter that says contracting says no, and they never even talk to contracting about it. So just be careful about the messages that you're sending. And no is not in the vocabulary of a contracting ninja. Yeah, the way they wanted you to do it, that's probably not the right answer. But there is a way to get there. The FAR has never stopped me from doing what I need to do, ever, not once. I mean, when Dr. Roper first asked me about setting up Air Force Pitch Day, it was in a hallway, and he said, can we award a contract and pay a contractor in the same day? I said, sure. That was that quick. He took a couple of steps back, and was like, are you a contracting guy? yeah, I'm a contracting guy. And in the nanoseconds between that space, I added up in my mind how we might be able to do that. And then I handed it to Major Sarah Lark, and I said, go lead this for Air Force contracting, and she did. The quake is still rumbling around the world. It is still rumbling around the world. We've sent the right message. We do have to follow up on it now. Okay, contracting drives the rules that complicate mission execution. There's not contracting rules and civil engineering rules and environmental rules. There's just rules. There's constraints. We happen to be the experts in the contracting ones, right? And so, and then, I've told the vice chief this too. There's nobody who knows more about how to turn dollars into mission than Air Force contracting does. We need to flip the script and support them in doing that for us. And I know you will. Contracting officers lack proper motivation. I don't know why this is always the thing that we go to first. You know, you need to inspire your contracting folks more. The reality of this is that every wing and program office, we find a way to get it done. We just do. That's what we do. And that's why we created the team dashboard in FICA, because nobody understood that when we succeed every single fiscal year, sometimes you're doing that on the backs of a severely undermanned contracting squadron and a severely undermanned civil engineering squadron. So we're going to show the 4-stars what risk they're asking their kids to take on, and they still get the mission done. But we're not going to be quiet about it. We're going to show you did that on the backs of an undermanned organization at that wing. That's that acquisition team. And they still got results for you. And then contracting officers not innovative. I just talked to you about that, but there's no question about the idea of the Air Force contract is a game changer in peace and war, and everybody recognizes that. And I do too, and I've lived it. So that's the what. This is incidentally the new AQC coin in production right now. It has our mission on top, Fly, Fight, Win, and it has what replaced our guiding principles on the bottom, which is our Air Force core values. Very simple, but very clear. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, sir. We're going to take a quick 15-minute break. Please be back promptly at 9:15. Thank you.